and now we can move into gold. If the buffalo is something, the leg is missing. This coin is a 1797 large cent, and it is priced at $1,797. Da-da-da! 1795, not flowing hair. Keep your eyes sharp, everyone. Hey everyone, Noah and Owen from Rarity 7 back with another 49 coins to go through, show and tell, and share some fun numismatic nerding with you guys. We have a great variety of coins here. We've got Carson City coins, we've got rare gold, we've got seeded coins, Draped Bust, everything. This is a really, really lovely group. One thing I will add before we even dive in, we've gotten some feedback from folks that by the time you watch this video, a lot of the coins are sold on our website already. So I must heartily implore you to sign up for the Rarity 7 email list. There's a link in the description below to do that. Everyone gets first shot on that email. When that email goes out, the floodgates are open, but we do not have our coins for sale before that email goes out. So if you want to be able to be notified right when these new videos go up and when our coins are live, sign up for that email list. Having said that, we're going to dive into some really awesome coins. Owen and I are excited to present them to you, and let's get started. Okay, first two coins. I'm actually going to start with two coins right off the bat. Owen, you found both of these coins. These were such a score. I was super excited about these. Two Vermont coppers. You found these at the Baltimore show. We were both so excited when you found these. There's something particularly special about them, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about them. They both have CAC stickers on them, and I don't believe that CAC is stickering colonials like this anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's my knowledge. I think they only do Fugios, right? But I don't think they do any other colonial type.
So this is one of those, like, we get a little preview of the world without CAC stickers where you can't, they're not making any new colonials like this with CAC stickers on them. So these are both nice coins and also special because of the fact that they have stickers. The first one, an XF40 PCGS with a CAC sticker, beautiful chocolate color. I really, I love the look on this coin. I'll show this. By the way, little feedback from everybody's been giving this feedback, and I've realized it. I need to move the coins more slowly, and I'm going to do a better job of that. Second one, an NGC XF45, similar great color. Tell me about what how you found these.
Yeah, I saw this pair at a case there in the Baltimore show. Whenever I see CAC sticker colonials, because they're a finite resource, I always try to buy them if the numbers make sense, and it did on this pair, fortunately. I love that CAC sticker. These two, I totally agree with it. What you want to look for in colonials like these, in addition to, we've mentioned this like nice chocolate brown color, which both of these ones display. You don't want any big scratches or dings or anything, or cleaning, but very importantly in it, a lot of people aren't too familiar with it. You want to look for a really well-rounded planchet. Early planchets are often full of contaminants. They look like kind of black streaks that can be really ugly. They can be major enough that there can actually be a hole in the coin that was as made. So considering that they can be that severe, you want to get ones with as few planchet problems as possible. And I don't really see any planchet issues to mention on this pair.
Well, both really nice and well done. Second coin third coin we have up, a 1797 stems, reverse of 97 large cent, Draped Bust. If I can associate one brand with Rarity 7 as we kind of continue to expand, it's going to be Draped Bust coinage. I just love it. And we were pricing this coin out. This coin is a 1797 large cent, and it is priced at $1,797. And that was fully intentional. Well, it wasn't. We didn't buy it realizing it, but when we were actually looking at the market, we were like, that coin's a $1,795, $1,800 coin. So here you have a 1797 large cent. You bought this. If some of you folks watch this video, you may recall Owen snagged a super cool early copper deal back at ANA, I think it was, over the summer. And this was part two. Same dealer. They got the rest of the collection, and you managed to clean up the rest. So this was really cool.
Yeah, this one stood out to me because 1797s, I don't really have a good explanation for it, but they just always seem to come really problematic. Like the average 1797 large cent that's raw just kind of looks like it sat in a deep fryer for a couple hours. They're like super porous and gross looking. So this one, I mean, it just faces up like without any real problems. The Obverse has great detail throughout. There's no strike issues. So it's just like a nice, wholesome mid-grade example of a pretty scarce year.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean exactly. Like you don't. I just realized like we get a lot of Draped Bust large cents. I don't see a ton of the like early pre-1800 ones. You see there's a bunch out there post 1800, but the pre-1800 large cents 95s are really easy. The flowing hair, those are actually a lot of those. The 94s are out there, but you don't see. And then of course there is the 1799, which is the key date, and those are always fun. But 97 is a great one. So a nice coin, good snag, Owen. Thank you. Okay, next coin we've got up on the agenda is an 1821 large cent. This coin is in VF20. Which is more circulated than we typically see for these. Oh, and I seem to recall seeing a lot of these in uncirculated, often with a die break around the stars. This one doesn't have that. Can you fill me in and remind me what the deal is?
Yeah, there's a very famous and prolific hoard of this type large cent called the Randall hoard. It contains several thousand uncirculated large cents, dated from 1816 to 1820. The 1820s usually come the nicest of the hoard. But there were many uncirculated examples of each respective date. 1821 is not a Randall hoard date, meaning that the dates that were not present in that hoard are way rarer than the ones that are.
Ah, interesting. So this is a tougher coin then. This is not like one of those.
Yeah, definitely. In 1820 and 64 brown is like a pretty available coin, whereas this coin in 64 brown would be a totally different animal.
Nice.
So much scarcer date here.
A tougher date, and nice to have one of the coins that's not one of the major hoard coins. Although, I've handled a bunch of the hoard coins before, and they're very pleasant. A lot of them have CAC stickers. A lot of them are, UNC. And if you want to get an early 1800s uncirculated coin, it's a great example. But if you are actually building a proper collection, this is a tougher date. Well, let's move on to a CAC-approved. Speaking of UNC coins, this is a not a Randall hoard coin, and a beautiful CAC-approved MS63 brown 1835 large cent. Again, this is, like you said, you see a lot of the Randall hoard coins in UNC. I don't tend to see this style in uncirculated very often. So this is a tougher, they changed Liberty's face a little bit. They elongated her neck slightly. It's quite a different design. Same technically Coronet design, but it is a little bit of a different design on the coin. So a scarcer coin that you see in UNC, and a nice 63 brown with a CAC sticker, and a very, very pleasant color. You kind of almost get that. There's definite hints of red in there, some nice luster, and a very, very pleasing looking coin. We got this from our buddy Nick, who's working with us and doing some buying, and a beautiful coin. We'll move into Lincoln Cents, a Rarity 7 staple, the 22 No D. I do love, we like getting esoteric random rare dates, but I do also love getting ourselves some quote unquote common but key date coins. Owen, can you remind everyone the story of the 22 No D was not made in Philadelphia, correct?
Correct. These are definitely made in Denver, despite not having a mint mark. And we know that because Philadelphia did not produce any cents in 1922. So what caused this is just an Obverse die that was way overused. So if you look at the Obverse, it looks very like weak and flat and really worn. Part of that's because of where the coin is circulated, but a large part of that is because the die is such a late die state. The die should have been discarded a long time ago, and the mint mark is kind of just die deteriorated or polished right off the coin. Again, we know that because Philadelphia didn't produce any Lincoln cents. So because of that, you get this really interesting coin that it kind of looks like a coin that shouldn't exist. They're very collectible without the mint mark. It increases the value of the coin by several orders of magnitude.
But one of the key Lincoln Cent series, we love to carry them, the SVDB, the 22 Noti, the 55 double die. Those are all the kind of classic Lincoln Cent. I would not say rarities because they're not particularly rare, but they are very popular, and we do love to stock nice ones. And a beautiful, no issues, no compromises VF20 CAC that we have here. Well, I mentioned the word double die, and we're going to move to a double die, but not one that you typically see. This is an 1867 2-cent Fine 15 double die. I think is an Obverse double die reverse. You found this coin. Oh, I have to admit, I didn't know that this coin existed. I'm not a 2-cent collector, and it was super cool. You found it, and so tell us a little bit about the 1867 double die.
Yeah, I really like this one. It has very prominent doubling. In God We Trust there in the Obverse. you're probably going to have to check this one on a website to get a good look at it. It's a very interesting variety with really dramatic. If you have this one in hand, you can see it from a couple inches away. You don't need a loop or anything. And they're very scarce, especially to find them with like nice original services. So to have this one, graded by CAC and everything, I really like this one.
Cool. Yeah, very pleasant looking coin. Photos, the photos came out really, really well on it one. So a tougher variety, FS101, the major double die variety, and a super fun coin. Here's one of the stars of this batch. Again, another Owen Seymour production. 1860 3-cent silver MS64 CAC with blazing color. I mean, listen, Trimes are like awesome. They have this moment of popularity, especially in contrast with 3-cent nickels, which are remarkably unpopular as a series. And Trimes are kind of almost improbably popular. They're small, they're an odd denomination, and yet extremely popular, much more so than half dimes. They when we get them, they sell kind of right away. This one is just fire. I mean, great color. What did you think when you saw this and you snagged this? You got this one at Baltimore, right?
Yeah, I picked this one up in Baltimore. Whenever I see a coin like this that's super popular, I mean, these are just on fire right now. It has a great look, PCGS graded, CAC approved. This is like exactly what we want to have in inventory. So I really like this one. What you want to look for on these 3-cent silvers is you want to have like a decent strike. These can come with very, very poor strikes, and they're just not that attractive. So this one has a fantastic strike. And you want to look for good luster. It's hard to grade these based off marks because they don't really get abraded. They're so small. So when you're looking at these, you want to be thinking about how attractive are they? How pretty are they? They have a good eye appeal, good luster. And this one definitely checks all those boxes. This is a really fantastic example of this type.
And if you guys haven't checked out the photos on the website, you should look at this because this just lights up. I mean, this coin was like a joy to shoot because I didn't have to take many shots of it. The colors came right out, and it was just a fire coin. So I really liked it. Well, we'll move on. Speaking of tiny little coins, we'll move on to a tough half dime. This one is a O Mint 420 55 CAC, a seeded half dime. Half dimes, as I was just mentioning, don't get enough love because they're tiny. They're just these tiny little coins, silver coins, but increasingly, I think, getting the recognition they deserve, especially with photography, we can take really nice pictures of it and you really can see the coin. This one, a beautiful AU55 CAC approval, O Mint coin. I found this one. Did I do all right on this one? I think it's a pretty nice one.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you checked the CAC pops on this. It's crazy. Just 2 in this grade from all services and 6 finer in all grades from all services.
Holy crap. That's rare. That's
pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
A very scarce coin here, very low survival rates. This coin was circulated very heavily. A lot of them were lost because they're so small, just lost to history. Circulated all the way down to good or even lower. So it's a fine one like this that was just barely circulated and kept original its entire life is really a treat.
Super cool. Yeah, fun one. I was very excited when I found this one, so that was really nice. We'll move on. We'll continue in our denomination. We'll move up to nickels. And speaking of our key dates, another Rarity 7 standard key date, a 37D 3-legger. In AU53 with CAC approval. Another one of the key date Buffalo nickels, along with, I guess, the 13S Type 2 and the 16 double die. One of the most popular ones, similar to the 22 no D, am I correct in how it was created?
Yeah, definitely. It's the exact same thing, just an overused reverse die here. So the die was overworked. Began to deteriorate. It was polished in an attempt to fix it, and eventually the front leg of the buffalo here completely buffed off the coin.
2 diagnostics, if I remember correctly, the skeleton leg on the reverse there, and a die break kind of moving in there in the middle there. Not terribly kid-friendly, the description that people like to use about the... if the buffalo is something, the leg is missing, and I'll let you fill in the blanks on that one, which is one of the diagnostics. But a fun CAC-approved 3-legger. Okay, well, we'll move to another CAC beautiful seated coin. Here is an 1847 dime in CACG XF45. I bought this at the Sunnyvale show recently from a dealer buddy of mine who had it in his group. Loved it. Tougher seated dime. This was in an NGC AU50. He actually gave me the label along with the coin, and he had sent it to CACG and took what we call like a down cross. They crossed it in a 45. They disagree with NGC's grade on the 50, and that's fine because I was able to buy it as a 45. I prefer it in a 45 CACG than in an NGC 50. It's a nice looking coin.
Yeah, this is another one with really low CAC pops. I just took a look here. 3 in this grade and 18 finer across all services. I love this one. It has a really nice stone gray look throughout. The date digits are really interesting. They're like way too big for this denomination, so they're like riding up onto the design. It just looks like a very cool looking coin here.
We'll get to a quarter lib that we have coming up later, very similar, where the date actually is like moving into the border of the coin. they just like completely were like, I don't know, we got to get this date on here somehow.
Yeah, I love these 1840 seated coins. They're really cool.
Yeah, and this is a nice look. And I on this one, I agree with CACG on this one. I think I much prefer this coin in a 45 than in an AU. I don't personally see enough meat on the coin to get to an AU on it. All right, next we'll move to one of our favorites, the Draped Bust, the old standby. Here is a 1806 Draped Bust quarter ANACS. We don't do a ton of ANACS stuff. You know, I bought this coin as is. I was hunting online, I found it, and you know, it's just this is an example of totally solid VG coin, not worth to us cracking, crossing, playing the whole game. It's not a terribly expensive coin. And so, you know, I'm happy to sell it as is in an ANACS holder. It's like a totally pleasant Draped Bust quarter. I think 1806 is one of the more common dates. Is that right, Owen?
Yeah, the 1806 is definitely more available than some of the other dates.
I mean, you know, do you agree? Like, pretty pleasant looking coin, probably not worth the effort to crack and cross unless you're a collector building that set.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this is like a properly graded VG08 coin. And the financial incentive just isn't there for us to tie the coin up for weeks or months and pay out the grading fees to get it in a different holder. You know, if it was like an XF coin, sure, but in this low of a grade, it's better to just buy it as a VG8 and sell it as a VG8 and move on from it. So they're totally happy to have this one in inventory.
And what I tell people, look, if you're building a PCGS set or an NGC set, it's a correctly graded coin. We're not biased about the holder. If you want to crack it, cross it, do whatever you do to get it in the holder of your preference, be our guest. Our goal is to get you nice coins that can do that and have the ability to get that grade. So moving on with our adventure in key dates, here is a 1916 Standing Liberty Quarter AG3 with CAC approval. This one in particular is a little tougher. You know, we have had dozens of SVDBs. We've had dozens of 3-leg buffaloes. We have had dozens of 16D Mercury dimes. We have not had a lot of 1916 Standing Liberty quarters. These are actually a little scarcer and tougher to find. Nice. You know, I picked this coin up. I liked it. These, I think, you know, you can't really see the date. I mean, it's there. You can make out a little bit of the 6. But, Owen, can you tell me, there are diagnostics on this coin, if I remember correctly, that enable you to identify it as a 1916 without having to necessarily see the full date. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can identify 1916s even if they're completely dateless. So one, you can identify them as a type 1 because there will be no stars below the eagle on the reverse. So that alone narrows you down to 1916 or 1917. Now, there's still a major value difference between the two, so there's actually a very interesting way to identify or delineate between the two, rather, even in like totally dateless, you know, O2 condition. On the obverse, there's like these walls or podiums left and right of Liberty there. When they're smooth and don't have these like very distinct, you know, I would say like rectangles inside of them, they're 1916s. Whereas the 1917s, no matter how worn they get, they're always going to have these really distinct, you know, rectangles. It's hard to describe. Go on Google and look it up, how to identify these. I'm sure you'll see an image of it. But they're very easy to identify with total confidence, even completely dateless.
That's really cool. We will try to throw up a graphic on this. I'll do my best to try to throw up a graphic on this to show the example. And then if I remember correctly, there's the hair is one other thing. And then there's a couple other identifiers that help you identify this as a true 1916. And correct me again if I'm wrong. I believe the story is, this was a new design. They switched over from the Barber quarter to the Standing Liberty quarter. They started producing these at the end of the year in 1916. So they only had a very short run, which is why this is a rarity and a key date. And then they moved into full production on the 1917s, which is why those are much more available. And that's a story that has repeated a bunch of times in the history of the U.S. Mint. The 1794 dollar was very similar. They kind of started at the end of the year, did a very short run, and then moved into the following year where there was a bigger run. And we've seen that story play out. So a pleasant looking coin. And thank you for helping us with those identifying marks. A lot of people have identified coins like this in their change or in junk bins because of being able to identify those die diagnostics. So keep your eyes sharp, everyone. We will go from an AG3 CAC to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Here is a 28S Standing Liberty quarter in 7 full head. I mean, almost complete opposite end. It's funny, 3 away from 0 and 3 away from 70 on this one. So, I mean, a really remarkable example of preservation on these coins. And this has just complete super flash on this coin. I really, really love. I mean, this one struck me. I mean, look, like I said, we're going to try to do these slowly so you can actually get a look at the coin. But I do have to give it a little bit of flash so you can see that dancing cartwheel luster. I mean, this is a true definition of cartwheel luster on a coin like this. Obverse and reverse, both super flashy. A little bit of golden toning on the right-hand side of this coin. Hammered strike, full head, it's all there. A remarkable coin and a beautiful, beautiful example of preservation for these. All right, well, now we'll move into cap bus halves. Boy, do we have some fun cap bus halves for you. First, I have an 1808 cap bus halve, AU58. I personally love the color of this coin. I love when they get this like silky gunmetal look to them as opposed to, I mean, there's just, when you see a lot of cap bus halves, there's a bunch that there's just different looks that they have. This is the look that I personally like the most. NGC AU58 early in the series. Owen, what do you think? Tell us a little bit about this coin.
Yeah, this is just second year of this type. The cap bus halves began in 1807. And the earlier dates are way scarcer than the later dates. So something like 1830s, 1832 or 1830, relatively common even in AU grades, but 1808s are way scarcer than those. I like this one. It's got great luster throughout, a pretty nice strike for the date. So definitely a solid example of an earlier bust half here.
Yeah, I mean, there's real and you sometimes get spoiled on these because, like you said, we have an 1830s one here that looks like a Morgan dollar, and so you don't realize that these early 1800 coins, seeing real luster on that is tough on the early ones. With Draped Bust coins, just 2 years earlier we'd look at an 1806 Draped Bust in this grade and we'd be at many, many, many thousands of dollars on it, and here we are just a few years later. Looking great. So a good start to our cap bust. Next, we're going to move into the 3 coins that I would say are probably my 3 favorite coins. And these are just not super expensive, but 3 absolutely wonderful CAC-approved cap bust halves. First, we're going to do an 1820 XF45 CAC. I mean, this is absolute cream of the crop, in my opinion. And I sent you a picture of these right after I bought them. And I think you said, love, 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 love these coins. So I'm going to show them, Owen. You want to talk a little bit about what you think on these guys?
Yeah, these are killer. I always say in this channel, I have a soft spot for bust halves. And while I like the 64 and 65 ones, there's just something about these VF and XF perfectly original ones that I love the most. So these are coins that I would love to add these to my personal collection. Just killer, rock solid, kind of tougher dates, CAC-approved, PCGS graded. There's nothing not to love about these.
Just like great original skin, circulated cameo look, and again, not like super expensive. I think the 1820 is over $1,000, but the other 2 are both well under $1,000 and incredibly good looking coins. So we have an 1820, an 1822, and then an 1824, all with that just super original look. I mean, we talk about These go in case 3 in our retail display case when we're at shows. These are like case 3 coins. We're going to give them a special tag. I would love to have an entire booth, an entire inventory of coins that look like this, and a really, really spectacular trio of coins. I got these all from a collector recently. He found them raw, got them certified and CAC approved, and did a really, really great job on that. And it was a pleasure to be able to do business with him and buy those. All right, well, here's an 1826, and this coin is notable for its color. This is it's only an XF, but boy, does this have rainbow color that pops, especially under, static lighting. I'm using camera lights here, so it tends to not show the rainbow as vibrantly. But man, this coin is exactly what you want in a rainbow, colorful CAC bust have. Make sure you check out the pictures of this coin on the website. Oh, and do you have a sense, this was not toned in the same way that a bag-toned Morgan Dollar was toned. Do you have a sense of how a coin like this managed to acquire its color?
Almost certainly an album of some type. You'll see these CAC bust tabs with color on occasion, and they're almost always out of albums. I've seen a few of the, walk into coin shops and everything. Whenever I see them with pretty color, it's always in an old school set. So these are very scarce with color, and these were hot coins with color 5 or 10 years ago. Nowadays, they're just absolutely on fire. Any time that a CAC bust tab goes to auction with pretty color like this, it never seems to fail to sell for way more than I would have guessed. So this is a really pretty one here with nice color.
Yeah, still the best coin that I have ever owned was an AU58 Plus CAC bust have with just lightning color. Well, I mentioned this a few coins ago. We'll move to exactly what you were just talking about. Here's an 1834 MS63 later date CAC bust have. And this coin, has the luster and blast of an 1881S Morgan Dollar. Again, like just to talk about the variety in this series alone, going from that kind of silky 1808 to, what you can now find in the 1830s, which is real, original, full flash, white mint luster, two completely different ends of the spectrum on the coin. This is mint state. This coin came out of a roll. Somebody put it in their collection, probably from the bank or, right when they saw it. And again, flashy and real cartwheel luster. So shows a really good example of the CAC bust series. And this coin, Owen, probably was dipped at some point in its life. Is that right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And dipping is kind of a broad blanket term for basically a way to gently remove the patina from a coin. There's right and wrong ways to dip a coin. If you do it the wrong way, you'll do what a lot of people call you'll burn the coin, meaning that you'll leave this like nasty kind of opaque tan looking environmental damage behind. Whereas if you do it right, you will not touch the surfaces at all. It'll come out looking completely pleasant, like this coin here.
Yeah, it is remarkable. You're right. Like sometimes I see coins like this and I have cognitive dissonance. You're right. I could see a Franklin, a Walker. This coin is like just as flashy as any modern coin. And this is from 1834, exactly, almost 200 years old. Really, really wild, and a super pleasant looking coin. And we'll move to one of my favorite areas of seated, which is the rare CC coins. Here's an 1873 Arrows Carson City coin, VF35. These early 70s seated halves are tough. The 70s CCs. Obviously, the 70s CC is the toughest first year. But, the 70, 71, 72, 73, all of the early to mid 70s Carson City coins are tough. How does this one look to you, Owen?
Yeah, this one looks great. A nice stone gray color throughout. It looks well made. There's no catches on it, no scratches or really bright, dings going on. Just like a nice wholesome CC half dollar. And I just want to note, these are another example of coins that have kind of always been popular, but the past couple of years they've just skyrocketed. It seems like everybody collects these things. Just absolutely on fire.
It's interesting how Carson City Gold has gotten less popular recently with the rise in gold, but Carson City other coins, especially the early 70s seated halves, have become just like blazing hot. We'll move on to a walker, a beautiful walker actually, and one of my favorite grades, a 20S XF45 with CAC approval. I bought this coin from the same collector who had those two CAC bust halves. I gotta say, XFs especially when they come nice, are some of the most fun grades on coins because you get these whispers of luster, and when they're nice, they're really nice. Now, you can also see some really terrible XFs that look like they're cleaned, and those are out there. But the wonderful folks at CAC really, really know what they're doing when they can identify an original one. So this one has like that super choice look to it, and I really liked it. This was in that same group I mentioned with the Draped Bust. Does this one tickle your fancy as much, Owen?
Yeah, I think you completely nailed the description. This is like a textbook example of just a rock solid original XF coin. You noted the traces of original luster. That's absolutely perfect. Wonderful original color throughout. No big distractions on this one. Just absolutely textbook wholesome.
All right, well, now we get to show my single favorite coin in this whole group, and the most Rarity 7 of the Rarity 7 coins. Owen gets full credit for finding this coin. 1795, not flowing hair, Draped Bust, VF35 with CAC approval. An insanely tough coin, an insanely cool coin. I'm almost speechless. I will let you tell the story of how you found this coin and why it's so awesome.
Yeah, I was walking by the table of a pretty large national dealer there at the Baltimore show. And it's hard to buy off national dealers. They're usually pretty smart. They don't like to leave room on the table, but I spotted this one. We paid a lot for it, but I think we can make a little bit on it. A coin like this is one that, we're just happy to have this in inventory no matter what. I mean, I'd be happy to own this and break even on it. Just to have it around for a couple days would be great by me. The CAC pop on this coin is 4. There's just 16 finer in all grades according to the CAC pop reports. And again, that's from all services, including CAC's ungrading. So uber scarce coin here, especially with CAC approval. It's just got a fantastic look to it. These like stone gray high points and darker recesses, a wonderful circ cam look. Just absolutely amazing. I think the detail is all there. I think it has claims to 40, I think, in terms of detail. Just an absolute wonder coin.
Ugh, yeah, I mean, superb. And another example of, if I recall correctly, they switched over in 1795 from the flowing hair design. So I mean, a lot of changes in the early mint. They switched over from the flowing hair design to the Draped Bust design, small eagle reverse. And then I think there were 2 different designs. There was the center and off-centered bust, and then moved over into 1796, which, by the way, 1796, still very, very scarce. All the small eagle Draped Bust dollars are super tough. But because this was a kind of mid-year switchover coin, the 1795s ended up being particularly tough. So super fun year to collect 1795. There's so many different designs that you can collect and varieties. I challenge you, if you want to build a incredibly badass one-year typeset, 1795 would be the year to do it. There's just so much variety and cool stuff to do. So, and you can start by getting this coin as your off-center CAC-approved Draped Bust. We'll move to a slightly less awesome, but still exceedingly awesome coin that you also found, a 1799 Draped Bust dollar. We switched to the heraldic large eagle reverse design on this one. The switch happened earlier, of course, but the 1799s do have this design. And you found this coin raw. You found this at the Pan Show, and it was a fun coin. We got it slabbed. The benefits of knowing how to grade coins, you're able to spot coins like this in the raw and get it graded. So what pinged you other than the fact that it was a super nice raw Draped Bust dollar?
The primary thing that pinged me was that they had it graded and priced as a VF20. Well, it's a little bit better than that. It looks like a 30. So we sent it in. It came back VF30. Again, this isn't an absolutely insane coin. This is a very common date of Draped Bust dollars. Not that any one date is common outright, but relative to each other, this one is probably the most available date. So again, nice original look throughout, nice gray surfaces, mid-level VF. Totally happy to have this one in inventory.
And a common date also super popular because everyone loves to get those 1799 coins. It's just super cool and a perfect example. So a widget in terms of Draped Bust dollars, but a really awesome one, and I really like it. So we'll move to seeded dollars, another wonderfully popular series. This is an 1840 seeded dollar, PCGS XF45. You know, seeded dollars, there are, I believe, 2 dates that immediately stand out as being the super common ones. One of the less common dates, this is an 1840 Philly. You see a lot of 42s, you see a lot of 72s, you see a lot of 60 O's and 59 O's. Those were actually the only date of seeded dollar that made it into bags. So those are, you know, you see a lot of those. But in terms of like for used in commerce, 1840s are tough. Now the 1850s, that's like a whole different ball game. Those are insanely tough. And a lot of seeded dollar collectors have been going wild for those 1850s coins lately. There was an auction recently where someone had a whole bunch of them in XF45 CAC, and they went for insane amounts of money, like $20,000 for coins that would otherwise be several $1,000 coins. But here we have a lovely 1840 Philly in XF45. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I really like this one. This is one of my favorites out of this entire batch. Just great color to it, wonderful detail, nice even strike throughout. If you look at the obverse there, I like looking at Liberty's hair in these seeded dollars. There's a lot of strike variants. And this one has just like a wonderfully detailed hair, especially for an XF coin. So I think this is just a really knockout example of a seeded dollar here.
We had an MS63 more common date one recently, and there was zero detail in the hair. It was like the most weakly struck coin, and that's the only reason. I mean, it had no marks on it, but it was just so weakly struck that they had to give it a 63. So it's nice to see. I mean, this coin in XF45 has more detail than that MS63 that we. All right, well, we'll go to trade dollars. A very similar look on this trade dollar in 1877 in AU53. You may start to see a theme. We like this kind of gunmetal-y, original, crusty look on these coins. We don't like the blast white. We don't want cleaned. I don't want to see mirrored luster on an AU trade dollar. So just like a nice wholesome, that's the word that we like to use on this, wholesome trade dollar. Would you tend to agree, Mr. Seymour?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think look is like a context-dependent thing. So we mentioned we had that bust half earlier in 63 that we agreed looked dipped. That kind of makes sense to me. Like a coin in uncirculated, high grade, but could be white in theory, and it kind of checks out that one would be white. What I can't stand is when people take like trade dollars like this and dip them. Like dipping is not an abrasive form of cleaning. It's technically the right way to preserve a coin. But when you dip like a circulated trade dollar like this, they just look awful. If it was like blast white, it makes all the hairlines from circulation pop. They just look terrible. So while we don't mind owning, a dipped, uncirculated bust half, I would never own like a dipped AU seated or a trade dollar like this.
Totally agree. This is the look that you want to go for on a kind of mid AU. This is what we would just call a solid, nice coin. There's not a lot to say about this. It's an ADS in MS65 proof-like. Look at that cheek. Very, very clean for an MS65. I have seen MS66s with worse cheeks. Flashy, proof-like, original, not dipped out and ruined like we have, like you might see. Just a very solid example of a coin in an NGC holder that can do no wrong. We'll move to later Morgan Dollars next. We've got an 88.0 in that same XF grade we were talking about earlier. I just love this look. And this is the double die obverse, otherwise known as Hot Lips. Where did that name come from?
I'm going to let the viewer's imagination run away with that one.
And I think PCGS probably correctly went to double die obverse instead of calling it by VAM Hot Lips. Also, like, not super descriptive. Like, I think double die obverse is actually better than Hot Lips on the coin. But depending on your when you started learning collecting, this is the Hot Lips variety 88.0 double die obverse XF45. Again, this has even more luster than that last XF45 we looked at. But I mean, hints of luster that a really, really choice looking coin.
I agree with you that double die obverse is a better designation, because to say that it's just doubled at the lips is silly. If you look at the obverse, the cotton leaves and cotton balls here in the obverse, if you look at that, it's a little bit tougher to see in this XF coin. They're also very dramatically doubled. So there's way more doubling on this coin than just at the lips. I love this one. A great XF look, CAC approved, and one of the most popular VAM varieties to boot. So a really cool Morgan dollar here.
we will continue with our theme of awesome key dates. 89cc in F15. This is one of your key date Morgan Dollars, along with the 93S, which is the most popular key date. But this is probably, at least in terms of like overall grade, I think probably the second most tough key price-wise, date-wise. Certainly the key date of the Carson City. 93cc is one of the better Carson Cities, but 89 has always been the tough one. I bought this coin at a local show recently, at the Sunnyvale show. Saw it, no complaints. A nice circulated, has that look. I almost kept this for my personal Morgan Dollar set. We'll do a video at some point when I get close to completing my Morgan Dollar set. I'll show off my Circ Cam personal Morgan Dollar set. But almost has the look that I was going for. But I decided to be a capitalist and sell it instead. So a nice F15 89cc Morgan. Well, speaking of other key date Morgans, we'll go to 93cc. Here is a 93cc, a different looking XF45, and the final year of the Carson City Mint. Overall, a nice, pleasant coin. These are actually remarkably tough. I know, Owen, you were looking at these as we were pricing out some of the coins. These actually kind of get tough in these higher grades.
Yeah, they get expensive very quick. And they're kind of available in all grades, but it just comes down to how much you want to pay for them. So I think this XF45 CAC example kind of serves as a good middle ground between a really pricey UNC one or a really cheap low-end circulated one. This is like a perfect in-between, in my opinion, and a rock-solid coin.
And I think this is like half the price of what an MS63 for this grade would cost. So, a nice example, more expensive than getting a good or a VG. And these actually scale pretty linearly. So a very, very reasonable on this one. And here's a 94p in AU58. You and I looked at this coin, and I bought this from a collector. We were looking at this coin as we were pricing them out. I mean, most 94s in AU58 do not look like this. This coin is really flashy and a super original, well-deserved CAC sticker. What do you think now that you're seeing this in video?
Yeah, we agreed. This coin totally has claims to UNC. I don't really see any substantial wear on this coin. There's a bit of doling there in the cheek. I think it'd be very easy to argue that that's just some kind of stacking friction or friction with a few other coins. There's no detail loss whatsoever on this coin, and the luster is practically full. If you go and look at 62s, there's worse 62s out there. The reason why we're not trying to upgrade this one, it's worth about the same amount of money as a 58 CAC, maybe a little bit less. So the incentive there just isn't there for us to kind of seek out an upgrade on this one. And we're always happy to offer conservatively or hopefully undergraded coins. We don't mind offering that.
Yeah, and this is, it's not cheap. We're not gonna lie about this. We are pricing this as a PQ AU58 CAC, and I hate to sound like other coin dealers out there, but if you look at the comps and the other AU58s and AU58 CACs that have sold, they don't look like this coin. This is really nice. So I apologize. I hate when other dealers try to convince me that I need to pay a lot for a coin because it's really awesome. This is the one rare case where I'm going to say this coin is really much more awesome than other 94p dollars. All right, well, I'm going to make you repeat your story, Owen, that you told everyone last time because I think it's really a fun story. Here's an 030 Morgan, PCGS MS63 CAC, old green holder. And you told this during a recent video, but I think it bears worth repeating.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really cool story. I mentioned in the earlier one, most of this information is from Bowers, who did a great write-up, and it's available on CoinFacts, the PCGS CoinFacts. So you can go there, scroll to the bottom of the page, and read it. But in summary, 1903 Morgans actually used to be the single scarcest date Morgan dollar in all of existence, up until about the 1960s. There was only a handful of them known. I believe less than 2 dozen. Very, very pricey coins, very sought after. And then the 1960s, it turns out they found several dozen, at least dozen bags, 1,000 coin uncirculated bags of these. So they're actually exponentially rarer to find them circulated than is one of these UNC ones like this. So after the Treasury release in the 1960s, they became not completely common, but they're nowhere near the rarest date of dollar anymore. There's tens of thousands of uncirculated examples are present today.
Fascinating. Yeah. So this is clearly, an UNC at 63. This is clearly one of those bag finds. And as you were saying that, I realized I'm probably going to have a pretty tough time finding the 030 for my circulated Morgan Dollar set, aren't I?
Interestingly, they're out there more than you would think, which kind of leads you to realize that, uh, Morgan dollars circulated well into the 1960s because you can find 030s out there that are circ, which means that it's one of those bag coins from the 1960s that circulated down that far heavily. So it's very interesting.
Fascinating. I did not realize that. Thank you. That's super, super interesting. Well, here is a UNC 030, MS63 CAC, OGH, and an excellent addition. We'll move to 040. Very, very common. There were many, many bags of these. These were part of the treasury hoards and one of the most common dates that you find in Morgan dollars. Now, we got this coin not because it's a common date, but because it's a 63, a deep mirror proof-like, CAC approved, and in a rattler. So all of the elements that make this coin an extra, extra fun addition. I will repeat another thing that we've talked about. These are, when you find deep mirror proof likes in older PCGS holders, that CAC sticker means a lot more. And Owen, you want to share with everyone why that's the case?
Yeah, we've discussed it before. In summary, proof-like and deep mirror proof-like standards have changed over time a lot, especially since the 1980s, when rattlers or NGC, the fatty holders, were being released. The grading standards for proof-like and deep mirror proof-like designations were a lot less strict. I honestly don't know really what the requirement was back then. Sometimes I see coins that are like moderately reflective and they get called dimple. I'm not sure. So what this translates to is that you have to be really careful buying these. You have to make sure, really look at the coin and make sure the coin checks out for the proof-like or deep mirror proof-like designation. For a deep mirror proof-like like this one, you should have these nice frosty design elements with these kind of blacker, darker looking fields that are nice, crisply mirrored. So I think this one, I agree with CAC, it totally checks out. A really nice coin here.
Okay, well, now we'll move into some peace dollars. We got a nice run of MS66 peace dollars, actually, and I'm really excited. We go from the common to the uncommon. I'm actually going to pull out the first three, which are more common dates, all CAC approved. Here is a 1922 in MS66. All have a very similar, super, super flashy look to them. MS66 being just a great grade on these coins. A second 22, similar look to it, not the exact same look. Also very, very flashy. And then a 23, also in MS66 with CAC approval. All three, common dates. Dare I call them widget coins, because I don't like to do that, because I don't like to commoditize any coins that we sell. But these are relatively common, but very, very nice, very, very popular. And I love stocking Blast White MS66 peace dollars. What do you think of these guys?
Yeah, this is kind of like the last affordable CAC approved grade for these. A 67 CAC is going to be, I don't know, 8 to 10 times this much easily. So this is a really nice example of a CAC approved choice gem piece dollar. And they're really not that much money, a few $100s here.
And then we'll move into 24. Here's a 6 plus. This coin is so close to MS67. You and I spotted this coin, and we actually gave it a try for MS67 twice, because we want to believe that there's, it's got all the elements. It's got that, just amazing skin on it. It's got an incredible flash. The 24s we've talked about on this series before have almost this sandblasted look to them, this textured luster on it. And this coin has all of the elements of what you would want to see in an MS67. It's just a hair away. It's got that original good haze, the happy haze that we like to call it. Just not quite there for 67. Maybe somebody with more skills than us will get this into an NGC 67 holder and call it a day. But not quite there for us on PCGS, but a beautiful looking coin.
Yeah, I think we agreed. Really, the only thing that I see holding it back, in my opinion, is there's kind of like a decent tick in the right reverse field. I wish the coin didn't have that, but for the buyer, that's like a $3,000 discount because the coin has that hit. So I think you're getting a 67 with like a reverse tick that's kind of easy to ignore, in my opinion.
That's a really, really good way. It's not multiple things. I mean, it is a true example of a 6+. It's just this little tick on the right there. That is the only thing that is holding this coin back from 67. If that weren't there, you would be the proud owner of a $3,000 more expensive MS67 piece dollar. So kind of a fun one. All right, and then we'll move to the less common piece dollars. You know, these the branch mints and the higher grade is where you start to get into toughness on these. So here's a 23 Denver in MS66, and this is where you get, you know, over $3,000 on these in this grade. Very flashy, nice looking coin, blast white. You know, no complaints. Really, really a nice looking amount of luster on it. Not quite there for CAC approval. I'm not even sure why this was not a CAC approved coin. I could certainly see it, but you know, overall incredibly pleasant for a 23D. A nice looking coin. We'll move to the end of the series of piece dollars, and a much more satiny look to it, a different type of skin. You know, they do you know why, Owen, the 35s look different than the early 20s looking coins?
I think the dies are just prepared in a slightly different way, and they kind of led to like a more matte looking finish. So these usually come with this like nice kind of swirling frosty luster.
A beautiful looking coin. And now we can move into gold, some of our favorite stuff. And we'll go right out of the gate with Owen's favorite series of coin. For those of you following along, do you know what that is? And the answer is gold dollars. And we do like our 1855s. We are a fan of the Type 2 gold dollars. This is the nicest Type 2 gold dollar that we have offered ever, actually. We've had some really, really nice, you know, AU and low mint state ones. This is a mint state 63 plus, just a hair away from 64. A super, super nice one. Owen, what do you think of this Type 2?
Yeah, this is really nice. These Type 2s are a conditional rarity in any choice or better uncirculated grades. So in 65, for example, this is about a $20,000 coin. Whereas being a 63 plus, you're talking a fraction of that. So it's not a cheap coin by any means, but I think relative to even a 1.5 finer, I think it's a pretty good deal conditionally. So I really like this one. It's got a nice pleasant color throughout. It's got the right amount of luster that you want to see. No big scratches or anything. So this one checks all the boxes for me.
Super, super pleasant looking coin. We'll move to a quarter lib and one in the Charlotte Mint. You know, this is the first Charlotte coin we've had in a while. We have some Dahlonegers in stock. And it's interesting. For a period of time, Dahlonegers were much more difficult to get a hold of than Charlottes. You could kind of find Charlottes out there. Charlottes have seemed to have evaporated off the market. They're both Charlotte and Dahlonega super, super popular, branch mint gold. But for some reason, the Charlottes have just disappeared. So here is a 1841 C solid mid-grade AU55. What do you think of this guy, Owen?
Yeah, I like this one. Like you mentioned, Charlotte Gold is really, really tough. And you know, a lot of U.S. coins were saved at some point. You know, they were struck at the mint and later stored in great quantity and left in uncirculated condition. That could not be further from accurate on Charlotte Mint Gold. There's no such thing as a hoard of Charlotte Mint Gold. It was a real workhorse of circulation. Large denomination coinage was desperately needed at the time, and Charlotte Mint Gold filled a void. So you see a lot of it very heavily circulated. A lot of it was kind of a victim of abuse. A lot of it was cleaned or holed or damaged or tooled in some other way. So to find one like this that is just lightly circulated without any major problems is tough. So I really like this one.
One thing I've noted when I was photographing this coin and comparing it in the lineup against the others, it's worth looking at the color of the coin because of where the gold was mined. This came from East Coast gold mines, where the composition and of the actual gold and the level of copper and silver found in the alloy was different than the West Coast gold. So this coin actually has a slightly different color that just comes from the historical fact of where the gold was mined. So always kind of fun. You notice that in the Beckler that we have for sale as well. Similar, slightly different, more yellowy, less golden color. Just kind of like an interesting historical note. Well, we'll move to some New Orleans mint gold. And I mentioned this earlier in the video. Here's an 1847 O. This coin, the date punch, look at that. That one is actually into the denticles. They just used they just used a date that was like super way out of sorts for the coin. Kind of fun.
Yeah, this is another one where I wanted to point out the CAC pops. Just 3 here in AU50 and 26 from all services and all grades finer. So this is a very scarce coin with CAC approval. Kind of scarce outright in any condition, but especially so with being totally original and barely circulated here. I love the luster on this one. It's got great detail there at the hair and throughout the reverse. No problems on this one. Again, checks all my boxes. Thrilled to have this one on the website.
Super, super cool. Yeah, we spotted this one at the Baltimore show, and we said, yep, that's us. We're going to get it. So there we go. Well, we'll move to a more common coin. This is a 1915 2.5 Indian MS63 with CAC approval. Not a super rare coin. This kind of is a slight premium above bullion level on this. But, you know, we took it in trade with a collector, and we didn't want to wholesale this out because I think there is a market, and I think it is worth our offering some nice CAC approved, relatively common pre-33 gold. But overall, a nice look to it. And I'm going to spin this a little bit more quickly and violate my own rule. As Owen, you'd like to remind everyone, these coins are about luster. Is that correct?
Yeah, the grading of this type is definitely centered around luster and eye appeal. So unlike other US coins, where abrasions are kind of the primary delineating factor, with incus gold like this, they just don't really abrade like other coins do. They don't get these like bag mark things that are kind of like easy to, you know, overall assess the surface quality. The grade of these is more so determined by the overall flash and pop of it. So you want to be looking for that nice pleasant luster throughout. The luster on this is great for a 63. I mean, from here it kind of looks like a 64. But again, we're totally happy to sell conservatively graded coins, and I think this is a good example of one.
Super cool. Thanks, man. That's great. That's awesome. Well, now we're going to go to an actually rare coin. This is a $3 gold coin, 1882 Philly XF45 CAC. I was doing some research on this before we priced it up. I think the mintage on this coin is like 1500. It's a microscopic mintage. Super, super rare coin. Interestingly, 1,000 estimated survival. So not a lot of these coins were melted. Relative to its original mintage, a lot of these were saved. But the 80s on these $3 gold coins get really, really tough. So this is a genuinely rare coin.
Yeah, crazy low mintage here, CAC pop of just 2. So wicked tough, especially compared to some of the other $3 gold pieces. None of them are exactly common, but this coin's downright rare like this.
Yeah, I like having like genuinely rare coins. And frankly, I think price relative to rarity. I mean, there are other series of coins where you look at a mintage of 1500 and you're talking like tens of thousands of dollars on a coin. Now, $3 coins are they're just not as widely collected. And so the fact that there's only 1500 minted means this is not a 5 or 6 figure coin, but it's a truly rare coin. So someone will recognize this and snag it, I have a feeling. And it's fun to handle really, really rare coins like this. We took this in trade with a collector. He bought a really, really nice coin from us and had some really, really cool coins that he was trading in for that. We'll move to $5 classic head design, an 1835. You know, I love getting classic head gold. I don't think we've ever offered a mint state classic head gold before. I know I've had a bunch in XF range, and I think I've had some AUs. I think this is my first mint state piece. And from the infamous Fairmont hoard, you know, we could spend a lot of time talking about Fairmont and the origins of the hoard and what the story is. But briefly, for those that you don't know, Owen, you want to give a quick background on this?
Yeah, so the Fairmont hoard, to my knowledge, it was one of the largest hoards of U.S. gold ever handled. It was brought to market by Stax Bowers, who's headquartered out of Southern California, and marketed through their auction firm. So it had a lot of really fantastic gold in it. There are a lot of really original pieces. I think this one here is a good example. For this date and denomination, there's fewer than 100 pieces in all uncirculated grades certified by PCGS. So this is like a nice, scarce rock solid example of an uncirculated type, scarce type.
Super, super fun. The first, it's fun to have some uncirculated classic head gold. And as as collectors, as you guys and start to look in the market, you will recognize the Fairmont collection has a look. The hoard was all stored, I think, in a very similar way. I personally really like the look. It's kind of a very original, slightly muted skin, and speaks to the, I guess, environmental conditions of where the coins were stored. But you can start to identify a Fairmont look, and this coin has that Fairmont look, and I think it's a very pleasing look for a mint state coin. All right, well, we'll move to bigger denominations. We're skipping 10s on this one. We're going to jump right into 20s. And another coin we took in trade, an 1874 Carson City 20 in XF45 with CAC approval. Early 70s, mid 70s, but, on the earlier side in terms of Carson City. But not one of the tougher coins. I mean, I think this is a relatively accessible coin in XF45 CAC. But overall pleasant, it's a nice mid-grade Carson City 20, right?
Yeah, I mean, and this coin, believe it or not, doesn't carry a giant premium over its gold content. Its gold content is around $4,000. And then certainly we aren't selling it for that. But, a lot of CC gold trades at many multiples of its gold content. This one, I think, has a lot of basal intrinsic value, despite being a CAC-approved CC gold piece.
Exactly, and it's why we bought it. We're trying to kind of stay away from these $10,000, rare Carson, or not even that rare Carson City coins. But for a small premium on a nice XF, we figured this one is a winner, and I think we'll go pleasantly into someone's collection. All right, well, we're going to do something with this next coin that we don't do very often. You will note that Rarity 7 does not offer details coins very often, but following the mantra of Owen Seymour, and that mantra regarding high reliefs is...
No such thing as a bad high relief.
No such thing as a bad high relief. And here is a 1907 $20 St. Gaudens high relief. AU details, and I initially, it's funny, I took this in trade with a collector, and I initially put it back when I was going through the whole bunch of coins. And, we needed to finish going through and fill out some value because he bought a big coin from us. And I went back and I looked at it again. I said, you know what? I should not dismiss this coin just because it's in a details holder. First off, I echo Owen. No such thing as a bad high relief. This is not a bad high relief. I mean, this coin, I have seen, I have handled and looked at coins in mint state straight grade that I think look worse than this coin. There is a light cleaning on it. I mean, if you look at a certain off angle, you can see there are some vertical lines over here on the left obverse field. I don't think it's a coin that was misgraded. I think it was lightly cleaned. There are some hairlines on the coin. But, I mean, look at the coin. Like, overall, it's incredibly pleasant. It's a fully pleasant, it's not polished, it's not jewelry grade, a totally pleasant, gorgeous example of a high relief with a light white. And most importantly, priced accordingly. I mean, this is not a $40,000 or $50,000 coin. I think we have it priced at under $11,000 or just there. Close to the basal value of one of these coins. So, Owen, I hope you'll forgive me for buying a details coin, but I hope I did all right on this one.
Yeah, I can live with this one. If you're looking to own a raw, I mean, the buyer of this could crack this coin out. You know it's authentic, right? You bought it as PCGS certified. It's definitely genuine. So you could crack this coin out. It'd be awesome to have in an album, or maybe in an old school plastic holder. And high reliefs are just a treat to hold. They're such an amazing coin to have raw. You don't want to do that with like a 63 or 64 quality coin, but with this coin, it's kind of harmless, to have this one in an album or have it raw. So I think this is just a good example of a very entry-level high relief for someone looking for one like this. Yeah,
and it's just not going to go down in value. I mean, you literally could keep this as a pocket piece for a few years and have it, and it's going to be worth basically the same amount that it's worth right now. This just is I think, an incredible value, and that's why we bought it. We're not marking it up a ton over what we paid, and I think it's a very, very reasonable example of a coin where there's no such thing as a bad one. So here we go. Next, we've got a common date 20, you know, a 1914S MS63 CAC, not hugely rare, but an example of a nice branch mint coin. You know, you often see these bags of Philadelphia coins from the 20s that are really kind of out there. You don't see S mint saints very often, or at least they're less obviously visible. And so, you know, we saw this coin and we said, you know, this is nice. I like it. I know Saints are not your favorite series, Owen, but I think this one makes the mark.
Yeah, I like San Francisco Mint Saints are more interesting than others. This is kind of an earlier date. Again, CAC approval, great gold color throughout this really nice, rich, nuanced color. So I like this one, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's totally pleasant and effectively being sold for, you know, you're paying a small premium over bullion to get an S Mint and a CAC sticker, but not a significant premium. And our last coin tonight, my personal favorite Kamem series, Oregon. I just love the way Oregons look. 38D Oregon in 7 CAC, a beautiful coin, great skin, great color. Not a super rare coin, but just kind of really nice. Owen, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I remember buying this one. We kind of picked this one out together. It stood out to me because the organs typically come like really, really toned. I don't mind kind of dark Kamems. I like them, but not everybody does. And if you're someone who doesn't like coins that are like overly dark or toned, it can almost be kind of difficult to find an organ. So I was happy to add this one to inventory because if you're looking for, you know, kind of like a brighter, more lustrous example, this is a really knockout example that's still original. You know, I don't think that this coin's been dipped or anything, but it was definitely stored in a pretty environmentally inert environment. So definitely happy to have this one on the website.
And that's it. So thank you everyone for joining us and sticking with this. This video will be going live right around Thanksgiving. So I wish you happy Thanksgiving from Owen and me and the entire Rarity 7 crew. I hope you guys had a wonderful time. Enjoy some family time and enjoy the holidays.